Oh, sure.
Because that's how I got to Petticoat Junction. I did a couple of shows, Beverly Hillbillies shows. And
For 7 years, Petticoat Junction sold America a promise. A place where nothing bad ever really happened. Where neighbors looked out for each other, problems were small, and the world felt safe again for half an hour at a time. Millions of viewers believed that promise. Families planned their evenings around it. Kids memorized the train whistle. Parents trusted the calm. But while Hooterville looked peaceful on screen, the real story unfolding behind the cameras was anything but. Illness was hidden. Cast members quietly disappeared. Tension simmered under forced smiles. And the final decision to cancel the show had nothing to do with ratings or loyalty. It came from a cold calculation that viewers were never meant to see. The truth is, Petticoat Junction didn't slowly fade away. It was pushed off a cliff. And the warning signs were there long before anyone realized what was happening. Because the show's shaky foundation was laid right from the start. Petticoat Junction broke television rules before it ever aired. When Paul Henning walked into CBS with the idea, executives didn't demand test audiences or pilot episodes. They didn't even ask for proof the concept would work. Instead, they approved a full season immediately, riding the success of the Beverly Hillbillies and trusting Henning's instincts. That kind of blind confidence was rare, even in the 1960s. The gamble paid off fast. Viewers showed up. Ratings climbed. The network relaxed. But that rushed approval also meant the show never had time to grow naturally. Characters were locked in early. The tone was frozen. And once the audience bonded with that version of Hooterville, any change, no matter how necessary, would feel like a betrayal. What looked like confidence was actually fragility hiding in plain sight. And that fragility was tied directly to where the show came from. Hooterville wasn't created in a writer's room. It was pulled from memory. Paul Henning's wife, Ruth, spent her childhood visiting her grandmother's hotel in Eldon, Missouri. The Burroughs Hotel sat right next to active railroad tracks, and it never truly slept. Trains roared through at all hours. Travelers drifted in with dust on their clothes. Locals gathered to talk, laugh, and share news. That rhythm shaped Ruth, and later, it shaped Petticoat Junction. The Shady Rest Hotel mirrored the Burroughs so closely that viewers felt the authenticity without knowing why. The warmth wasn't manufactured. It was remembered. But when a show is built on memory instead of flexibility, it becomes vulnerable. Because memories don't adapt well when real life starts pushing back, and nothing symbolized that fragile realism more than the train. The Hooterville Cannonball wasn't just scenery. It was the emotional heartbeat of the show, its slow arrival, its familiar whistle, the water tower greeting it every time. Paul Henning modeled it after Sierra No. 3, a real steam locomotive built in 1891 and still operating in Jamestown, California. He watched it move, listened to it breathe, and understood why people connected to machines like that. When audiences saw the Cannonball, they didn't think about history or mechanics. They felt comfort. It made Hooterville feel permanent, like it existed even when the cameras weren't rolling. That illusion became one of the show's strongest hooks. But maintaining that illusion came at a cost the audience never saw, because the train wasn't always what it appeared to be. Exterior shots used the real Sierra No. 3, but interior scenes were filmed inside a hollow plastic shell on a Hollywood soundstage. To simulate movement, crew members physically rocked the structure by hand. The effect was violent. Actors became dizzy. Some grew physically sick between takes. Bea Benaderet famously nicknamed it the Nausea Express, and the name stuck. Long dialogue scenes became endurance tests, not performances. What looked cozy on screen felt chaotic in real life. The cast laughed through it, but the strain was real. And that strain reflected a deeper truth. Petticoat Junction was working harder than it should have just to maintain its image. The cracks were forming. No one noticed yet. But the pressure was building, and it would soon land on the one person holding everything together. By 1967, Bea Benaderet was seriously ill. She was battling lung cancer, but viewers were told nothing. Scripts quietly explained her absences as business trips or off-screen errands. When she returned, fans noticed she looked thinner, more tired, less animated, still smiling, still professional, still working. The illusion held, but just barely. The cast knew. The crew knew. The audience sensed something was wrong but couldn't name it. Instead of turning away, viewers leaned in harder. Ratings stayed strong. The show became more fragile without anyone saying why. Petticoat Junction was now balancing on one person's strength, and that strength was being stretched thinner every week. And eventually, the show ran out of ways to hide the truth. Bea Benaderet's final appearances were painful to watch if you knew what to look for. Her voice softened. Her movements slowed. Between takes, the set went quiet. When she passed away in October 1968, production was already underway. The response was desperate and respectful at the same time. Old footage was reused. Lines were dubbed. Flashbacks filled the gaps. The show continued, but something fundamental had vanished. Kate Bradley wasn't just a character, she was the glue. Without her, Hooterville felt hollow. Ratings didn't crash instantly, but the emotional rhythm was broken. The comfort that once defined the show now felt forced. So CBS tried to fix the unfixable. June Lockhart was brought in as Dr. Janet Craig, and the intention was clear: stabilize the show with experience and polish. But audiences didn't see a new character. They saw a replacement, whether the producers meant it or not. Lockhart was confident, modern, and refined. Everything Kate Bradley wasn't meant to be. The shift was immediate. Some viewers welcomed the strength. Others felt betrayed. Letters poured in. Boycotts followed. Ratings dipped by double digits. Petticoat Junction didn't collapse, but it lost its identity. The gentle balance between humor and warmth tilted, and once that happened, every other weakness became easier to see, especially the ones that had been there all along. Even before Bea's passing, Petticoat Junction had a problem it never fully solved: instability. The Bradley sisters became a revolving door. Janine Riley left early, chasing bigger roles. Pat Woodell stepped away from music. Each departure forced the audience to recalibrate their emotional investment. Replacements tried to fit into a world that was already shifting under their feet. Continuity suffered, chemistry fractured. Viewers didn't abandon the show all at once, but the bond weakened. Familiarity turned into uncertainty. And once audiences stop feeling grounded, they start questioning everything. That instability set the stage for the most damaging casting controversies of all. And one of them would follow an actress for the rest of her life. When Meredith McRae joined Petticoat Junction as Billie Jo Bradley, the producers believed they were making a safe decision. She was talented, likable, and already familiar to television audiences. But the reaction was immediate and harsh. Fans didn't judge her performance. They judged the fact that she wasn't the Billie Jo they remembered. Letters flooded the network. Some were polite. Many were not. McRae later admitted she felt like an intruder walking into someone else's home. Every scene came with pressure. Every smile was measured against a memory she could never replace. And yet, she stayed. She carried the role through the show's most unstable years, quietly absorbing criticism that was never really about her. If you're enjoying these untold behind-the-scenes stories, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It helps more than you think. And here's a question for you. Should a long-running show replace a beloved character at all? Or is some loss impossible to recover from? Because that debate would soon move beyond casting and into the future of television itself. By the late 1960s, something bigger than Petticoat Junction was happening. CBS executives were no longer chasing loyal viewers. They were chasing younger ones. Advertisers wanted urban audiences with disposable income, not rural families watching out of habit. Shows like Petticoat Junction, Green Acres, and the Beverly Hillbillies suddenly felt old-fashioned. Internally, the network began using a phrase that would later become infamous: rural fatigue. It didn't matter that these shows still pulled solid ratings. They didn't fit the new image CBS wanted to sell. The problem wasn't performance. it was perception. And once that label stuck, no rewrite or new character could remove it. A decision was forming that would erase an entire era of television in one move. In 1971, CBS executed what later became known as the Rural Purge. In a single season, dozens of shows were canceled, many without warning. Petticoat Junction was among them. There was no dramatic farewell episode, no celebration of its legacy. It was simply gone. Cast members learned through trade papers. Fans were confused. Ratings had not collapsed, yet the show vanished anyway. For audiences, it felt abrupt and cold. For television history, it marked a turning point. Networks had chosen demographics over devotion, strategy over sentiment. And once that line was crossed, there was no going back. But the end of the show wasn't the end of its shadow. Decades later, Petticoat Junction is rarely discussed without context. It's not just remembered as a sitcom, it's remembered as a warning. A reminder that success doesn't guarantee survival. That tone, timing, and cultural mood matter as much as ratings. The show represents a moment when television stopped reflecting its audience and started reshaping it. And in doing so, it left behind viewers who felt abandoned. That emotional disconnect still echoes today whenever a beloved series is abruptly canceled for reasons that have nothing to do with quality. Which raises an uncomfortable question modern streaming platforms are still struggling to answer. It was outgrown by an industry chasing something new. Its real story isn't about declining creativity. It's about how quickly entertainment can turn its back on loyalty. The show proved that warmth, consistency, and character-driven storytelling could build trust over years. But it also proved how fragile that trust is when executives stop listening. Every sudden cancellation today carries a piece of this history with it. Because when audiences invest emotionally, they don't forget how they're treated. And long after the sets are gone and the cameras stop rolling, the feeling of being dismissed remains. And that may be the most lasting legacy of Hooterville of all. When Petticoat Junction ended, the public assumed the cast simply moved on. In reality, many of them carried the show's sudden disappearance like unfinished business. Some found steady work, others drifted into obscurity, and a few quietly stepped away from Hollywood altogether. Typecasting became an invisible wall. Casting directors didn't see range. They saw Hooterville. Interviews years later revealed a shared frustration, the feeling that their careers were frozen inside a world that no longer existed. The show had given them fame, but it also defined them too narrowly. For some, that identity became harder to escape than obscurity ever would have been. And while fans remembered the warmth and simplicity, the actors remembered something else entirely: the abruptness, the silence, and the lack of closure. Because the industry had already moved on to its next experiment. Television history is often shaped by what survives in reruns. Petticoat Junction lived on through syndication, but in fragments. Episodes aired out of order. Context was lost. Character arcs flattened. New generations didn't experience the show as it was meant to be seen, slowly, familiarly, week after week. Instead, it became a collection of moments rather than a living world. That shift subtly changed its reputation. Critics dismissed it as lightweight. Scholars overlooked its influence. But those who watched it in real time remembered something richer. A show that understood rhythm, community, and emotional consistency long before television language evolved to name those ideas. And that misunderstanding still affects how it's judged today. Modern television often praises comfort shows without acknowledging where the blueprint came from. The DNA of Petticoat Junction exists in countless series built around place rather than plot. Small towns, familiar routines, characters who grow slowly instead of transforming overnight. That approach didn't vanish, it was repackaged. Streaming platforms now rely on the very emotional loyalty CBS once dismissed. Binge-watching thrives on trust, not novelty. Ironically, the industry circled back to the values it once rejected. But Petticoat Junction rarely receives credit for that foundation. Its influence is quiet, unbranded, and easy to overlook unless you know what to look for. And once you see it, It's impossible to unsee. What lingers most about Petticoat Junction isn't how it ended, but how it didn't. There was no final statement, no reflective goodbye, no acknowledgement of what the show meant to its audience. That absence created a strange emotional aftertaste. Fans didn't mourn an ending. They questioned a disappearance. And that unresolved feeling became part of the show's legacy. It taught viewers an unspoken lesson. Television could take something away without explanation. That lesson shaped expectations for decades. It trained audiences to brace for loss, even during success. And that emotional conditioning didn't happen by accident. Petticoat Junction helped normalize a practice that still defines television today. The idea that strategic change justifies emotional damage. Networks learned they could cut deeply familiar shows and survive the backlash. Viewers would complain, then adapt. Loyalty, once broken, could be replaced. That realization reshaped programming decisions forever. But it also created a long-term cost: distrust. Every abrupt cancellation since carries that same DNA. And while the industry evolved technologically, that habit never disappeared. In many ways, Petticoat Junction wasn't just a casualty of change. It was the rehearsal. And the final chapter of its story reveals why that matters now more than ever. Among all the stories from Petticoat Junction, nothing has endured quite like the water tower. Built in 1938 in Jamestown, California, it once served a purely practical purpose: supplying water to steam locomotives. Yet on television, it became iconic, appearing in every opening sequence and quietly signaling the start of another Hooterville adventure. By the 1970s, neglect had left it rotting. Only its concrete footings and spouts survived. Fans assumed it was lost to time, a relic of television history. But in 2001, a careful reconstruction project restored the tower on its original footings, following strict historical preservation standards. A wooden roof was added, modeled after 1920s photographs, ensuring it could withstand the decades to come. Today it continues to water real steam engines at Railtown 1897, State Historic Park, a working monument to the show's legacy. For visitors, the tower is more than metal and wood. Its memory made tangible, proof that even when shows vanish, their symbols can endure. In a world where television is disposable, the water tower reminds us that some pieces of history persist, quietly defying time. And its endurance mirrors the stubborn emotional imprint Petticoat Junction left on viewers, reminding generations that Hooterville was never truly gone. While audiences remember Hooterville for its gentle humor, Petticoat Junction's behind-the-scenes world was far from idyllic. Cast members faced typecasting, health crises, and the pressures of an industry that rewarded appearance over well-being. Bea Benaderet carried the weight of the show through illness, while younger actors like Meredith McRae and the Bradley sisters struggled under fan scrutiny and abrupt recasting. Tabloids followed actors like Gunilla Hutton, whose personal life was thrust into the public eye long before social media made scandal instantaneous. CBS's decisions were often ruthless. Shows were canceled not because of quality, but because executives valued demographics over loyalty. The audience saw the polished version, the warmth, the nostalgia, the steam whistle calling families to their living rooms, but very little of the exhaustion, fear, and uncertainty that fueled each episode. Those untold stories reveal the fragility of what viewers assumed was simple entertainment, and they highlight a truth that resonates with creators even today. Television is as much a business as it is a story, and business decisions can erase years of emotional investment in an instant. Despite its abrupt end, Petticoat Junction left a subtle but enduring influence on television storytelling. Its focus on place over plot, community over spectacle, and characters whose lives unfolded slowly inspired the comfort viewing shows of decades to come. The structure of Hooterville, the rhythm of the cannonball, and the interpersonal dynamics between its characters set a template for shows that relied on consistency rather than shock value. Sitcoms in small towns, ensemble casts with recurring locations, and narratives rooted in everyday life all trace DNA back to Paul Henning's creations. Even streaming-era feel-good series, designed to generate viewer loyalty and binge engagement, echo Hooterville's blueprint. Trust audiences with familiar spaces, let characters breathe, and allow storytelling to exist across years rather than episodes. Petticoat Junction, Green Acres, and the Beverly Hillbillies collectively created a model of emotional investment in television that many modern creators are only rediscovering. And while the shows themselves were dismissed for being rural at the time, their DNA persists, quietly informing the modern landscape of family and small-town entertainment. Thanks to reruns, syndication, and streaming, new generations have discovered Petticoat Junction long after its original audience disappeared. Yet the experience is different. Viewers no longer tuned in weekly, waiting for the cannonball's whistle. Instead, they binge episodes in fragments, scattered across platforms, often missing the subtle arcs that once made the series feel alive. Still, fan loyalty remains remarkable. Social media posts, visitations to the restored water tower, and discussions on forums demonstrate how deeply the show has embedded itself in cultural memory. For these viewers, Petticoat Junction is more than nostalgia. It's a connection to a time when television created a shared, predictable space for families, when the rhythm of storytelling mattered as much as the plot itself. And that loyalty endures because the emotional core of the show, the warmth, the community, and the resilience of characters facing invisible struggles, remains relatable. Even decades later, Hooterville proves that well-crafted stories leave echoes that no network decision can fully erase. Petticoat Junction's story is more than a tale of television history. It is a reflection on impermanence, loyalty, and the human connection to stories. The show reminds us that even perfect ratings cannot shield art from corporate decisions. It teaches that the people behind beloved characters carry untold burdens, often hidden from the audience. And it proves that legacy isn't measured in numbers alone. It's in memory, influence, and the symbols that survive time, like a water tower still watering steam engines nearly a century after its construction. For creators and viewers alike, the series offers a cautionary tale. Trust is fragile, emotional investment is real, and the impact of stories stretches far beyond their final episode. Petticoat Junction may have been cancelled, but its lessons endure. The small town lives on in syndication, in streaming, and in the hearts of those who remember waiting for the whistle, knowing that Hooterville, despite everything, never truly disappeared.